Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavate Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshadharine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhagavatam Canto 5 Chapter 4 Verse 14 Translation. Being an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ṛṣabhadeva was fully independent because his form was spiritual, eternal, and full of transcendental bliss. He eternally had nothing to do with the four principles of material misery, birth, death, old age, and disease. Nor was he materially attached. He was always equipoised, and he saw everyone on the same level. He was unhappy to see others unhappy, and he was a well-wisher of all living entities. He was equipoised. He saw everyone on the same level. He was unhappy to see others unhappy, and he was the well-wisher of all living entities. Although he was a perfect personality, the supreme lord and controller of all, he nonetheless acted as if he were an ordinary conditioned soul. Therefore, he strictly followed the principles of Varnashrama Dharma and acted accordingly. In due course of time, the principles of Varnashrama Dharma had become neglected. Therefore, through his personal characteristics and behavior, again, Varnashrama Dharma. Through his personal characteristics and behavior, he taught the ignorant public how to perform duties within the Varnashrama Dharma. In this way, he regulated the general populace in householder life, enabling them to develop religion and economic well-being and to attain reputation, sons and daughters, material pleasure, and finally eternal life. So this is Varnashrama Dharma. And by his instructions, he showed how people could remain householders and at the same time become perfect by following the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. The Varnashrama Dharma is meant for imperfect conditioned souls. It trains them to become spiritually advanced in order to return back home back to God. So this is for all imperfect conditioned souls. Pretty much everybody in the material world are imperfect conditioned souls. It is not meant for perfect siddhas, liberated souls. It is not for them. But even siddhas, they follow Varnashrama. Mm. Uh, why do we say even perfected living beings follow Varnashrama? In today's ISKCON, can you give an example of how what does this statement mean? That we are actually very actively following Varnashrama Dharma. What section of ISKCON actually is following Varnashrama Dharma properly? Can somebody say? Sannyasis. So Varnashrama Dharma has four, right? Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, then Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. So the sannyasis, though they are highly elevated, you know, pure devotees, and they have nothing to do with Varnashrama, they're still following Varnashrama. And who taught this? Who showed the path? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So it's a bit surprising when we reject Varnashrama otherwise as ISKCON. We are already following. I mean, all the sannyasis are actually following Varnashrama. They are actually following the sannyasa order. So what is the problem? Or why should grihasthas not follow? Or vanaprastha, why should we not follow grihastha ashram or vanaprastha ashram? Brahmacharis are also following. So there is brahmacharya ashram, there is sannyasa ashram. Only Grihastha ashram and Vanaprastha ashram are not regulated. And that is most of us. And most of us, we don't want to follow this. Though those who are serious in achieving perfection, which is brahmacharis and sannyasis, they are following varnashrama. Of course, Prabhupada said that not every aspect of varnashrama dharma can be followed, but keeping Krishna in the center and following absolutely required aspects of varnashrama is absolutely favorable. So we should understand that it trains, varnashrama dharma trains one to become spiritually advanced. A civilization that does not know the highest aim of life is no better than an animal society. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Nate vidu swartha gatim hi Vishnu. A human society is meant for elevation to spiritual knowledge, so that all of the people can be freed from the clutches of birth, death, old age, and disease. The Varnashrama enables human society to become perfectly fit for getting out of the clutches of Maya, and by following the regulative principles of Varnashrama Dharma, one can become successful. In this regard, see Bhagavad Gita 3.21 to 24. So, Yadyad achariti shreshtas tatta tevetaro jana. Sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanuvartate. So, whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Okay. So Krishna is saying, I don't have any prescribed work, but I'm doing, uh, yet I'm engaged in prescribed duties. He's saying, if I don't carry out prescribed duties, then certainly all men will follow my path. And that results in Varna Sankara. The world would be put into ruination if I don't perform my prescribed duties. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population. And thereby I would destroy the peace of all living entities. So basically, to avoid this, one has to follow Varnashrama. And that is the reason even when Krishna comes, he follows Varnashrama. Mm. Anyway, so idea is that we have to follow uh, Varnashrama to the best possible extent, right? And as ordained by our acharyas. Um, so he strictly followed. We cannot strictly follow all aspects, but whatever is required has to be followed. Mm. So we have to this. Why should devotees follow Varnashrama? Because to teach the ignorant public how to perform duties. Why is this important? Because eventually it will bring them to uh, Krishna. Excuse me. So spiritual advance in order to return home back to Godhead. So for the majority of the population, many people don't want to do bhakti because they're not accumulated that sukruti. And even though devotees try hard to bring them the mercy of bhakti, they don't want. So for such people, they have to follow varnashrama. Otherwise, what will happen? They will engage in sinful occupation, which is the main problem. And when they engage in sinful occupation, engage in life of sense gratification, and that is going to bind them further. So it's not going to free them. So if they follow Varnashrama, then like Prabhupada saying here, mm, mm, regulated. In this way, he regulated the general populace in householder life, enabling them to develop dharma, artha, uh, attain reputation, sons, daughters, material pleasure, all this, which is what people want. But if they don't follow Varnashrama, then they will follow a wrong path, and that will result in suffering. If they follow Varnashrama, then they can achieve all this, which is what everybody is looking for. Conditioned souls in the material world, they want material pleasure, material happiness, etc., etc. So Varnashrama Dharma gives them all that, and finally it will bring them to eternal life. So it will train them to become spiritually advanced. So Varnashrama gives both material well-being as well as spiritual well-being, and that is the reason why Prabhupada said 50% of my mission is not complete. So this is very, very important actually to because otherwise, the whole world will follow. I mean, now devotees, people look at devotees. Mm, if devotees are not living an ideal life, then others will think, oh, okay, they're doing bhakti and this and that, all, and they're only just living life. However, mm, so then others will also follow. So we have to be very careful. We have a huge responsibility on our shoulders. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow. A similar verse is also found in Bhagavad Gita. It is essential for human society to have a section of men perfectly trained as qualified brahmanas according to the instructions of Vedic knowledge. Again, this is about being perfectly trained. Those below the Brahminical qualification, administrators, merchants, and workers, should take instructions from those ideal people who are considered to be intellectual. In this way, everyone can be elevated to the highest transcendental position and be freed from material attachment. Hmm. Again, so the other varnas have to take instructions from qualified brahmanas. In this way, everyone can be elevated to the highest transcendental position. Because that is the idea of varnashrama, to get elevated to the highest transcendental position. And to get elevated to the highest transcendental position means to be free from material attachment. Material world is described by Lord Krishna himself as Dukhalayam Shashvatam, temporary place of misery. No one can stay here, even if he makes a compromise with misery. One has to give up his body and accept another, which may not even be a human body. As soon as one gets a material body, he becomes Deha Bhrit or Dehi. In other words, he is subjected to all the material conditions. The leaders of society must be so ideal that by following them, one can be relieved from the clutches of material existence. Again, just emphasizing Varnashrama. Although Lord Ṛṣabhadeva knew everything about confidential Vedic knowledge, which includes information about all types of occupational duties, he still maintained himself as a Kshatriya and followed the instructions of the Brahmanas as they related to Sama, Dama, then Titiksha, and so forth, Sama, Adibihi. Thus, he ruled the people according to the system of Varnashrama Dharma, which enjoins that the Brahmanas instruct the Kshatriyas and the Kshatriyas administer to the state through the Vaishyas and Shudras. So one thing we have to understand about this, there's also one more misconception in that everybody has to become a Brahmana. Everybody cannot become a Brahmana unless they have the qualities. And we should also remember that Vaishnava is above Brahmana. Vaishnava is above Brahmana. To achieve perfection, to go back home, back to Godhead, one doesn't have to become a Brahmana. Actually, Brahmana is a lower status than Vaishnava. And everybody cannot become a Brahmana unless he has the qualities. Pathan, Pathan, Yajan, Yajan, Dana, Pratigraha. Unless one is engaged in this kind of activity, Pathan, reading scriptures, Pathan, teaching scriptures, Yajan, doing Yagya, Yajan, helping others do Yagya or doing Yagya for others, Dana, Pratigraha, accepting charity, giving charity. Unless one is actually in this guna, in this quality, they should not become Brahmanas. If they're in lower qualities, because of their conditioning, though they are practicing Vaishnavas, no need to force them to come to Brahmana state because they can't remain Brahmanas. One of the key things for Brahmanas is cleanliness. Cleanliness. So, Brahmanas cannot just tolerate unclean conditions. It's the nature. It's nature of Brahmana. Shaucham is one of the qualities. Now, if somebody doesn't can't see any dirt at all or uncleanliness, mm, then how can that person be a Brahmana? Now, why should everybody be a Brahmana? No, not required that everybody be a Brahmana, even if they don't have the qualities. So it's very, very important that Brahmanas should be like Brahmanas. Otherwise, they can remain whatever else in their social condition. Still practice devotion. No need to force people to become Brahmanas. Mm, somehow it's misunderstanding that everybody, oh, if I don't become Brahmana, then I will not go home back to Godhead. No, there is no connection at all. Actually, in fact, like Vaishnava, Hare Krishna Mahamantra is more than anything else. It will give the perfection, required perfection. Although Rishabdev knew all the Vedic instructions perfectly well, he nonetheless followed the instructions of the Brahmanas in order to perfectly maintain the social order. So, which means those who are Brahmanas should be actually able to guide the others, even in ISKCON. So, those who are Brahmanas should ideally be preachers or pujaris, because that is the only other requirement, only other um, service in ISKCON which requires being a Brahmana, is pujari. But pujari also cannot be just pujari during mm, his service, and other times he's living his life is in that of a lower order of varnashrama. Varna. It cannot be living like a kshatriya, vaishya, shudra. Can't be a pujari brahmana. He has to be brahmana, which means he also needs to have spiritual knowledge. He should be able to give spiritual knowledge also. That is the highest. That is the ideal expectation. The brahmanas would give advice according to the shastras, and all other castes would follow. The word Brahma means perfect knowledge of all activities. See, perfect knowledge of all activities. What should be done, what should not be done. And this knowledge is very confidentially described in the Vedic literatures. Men trained perfectly. Again, you have to note this word trained. It's a matter of training. Perfectly as Brahmanas should know all Vedic literature, and the benefit derived from this literature should be distributed to the general populace. This is also one of the activities of a Brahmana. The general populace should follow the perfect Brahmana. In this way, one can learn how to control the mind and senses and thus gradually advance to spiritual perfection. And also, we should try to mm, develop all these other qualities: shama, dama, mind control, sense control, mm, tolerance, austerity, cleanliness, knowledge, realization. All these are qualities of a Brahmana. Now, Rishabdev performed all kinds of sacrifices 100 times according to the instructions of the Vedic literatures. And thus, he satisfied Lord Vishnu in every respect. All the rituals were enriched by first class ingredients. They were executed in holy places according to the proper time by priests who were all young and faithful. In this way, Lord Vishnu was worshipped and the prasada was offered to all the demigods. Thus, the functions and festivals were all successful. It is said, Kamara acharit pragno dharman bhagavataniha. A ritual should be performed by young men, even boys at a tender age, in order for the ritual to be performed successfully. From childhood, people should be trained in Vedic culture, especially in devotional service. In this way, one can perfect one's life. A Vaishnava does not disrespect the demigods, but on the other hand, he is not so foolish that he accepts each and every demigod as the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is master of all demigods, therefore, the demigods are his servants. The Vaishnava accepts them as servants of the Supreme Lord and he worships them directly. Mm. In the Brahma Samhita, the important demigods Shiva, Brahma, even the incarnations and expansions of Lord Krishna like Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and all the other Vishnu tattvas as well as Shakti tattvas like Durga Devi are all worshipped by the process of worshipping Govinda with the words Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. A Vaishnava worships the demigods in relation to Govinda, not independently. Vaishnavas are not so foolish that they consider the demigods independent of the Supreme Lord. Mm. This is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ṛṣabhadeva. Supreme Master is Krishna and all others are his servants. So this is also one thing that mm, we should not worship demigods. We should also not take the prasada, demigod prasada. So these are practices that have been taught and we have to follow. We should not just generally think saying, oh, no, no, I am above all this. Yeah, maybe some devotees are above all this, but not majority of us. So we have to follow these things, whatever is being discussed here. No one likes to possess anything that is like a will o' the wisp or a flower in the sky, for everyone knows very well that such things do not exist. When Lord Ṛṣabhadeva ruled this planet of Bharatavarsha, even common men did not want to ask for anything. Even men did not want to ask for anything at any time or by any means. No one ever asks for a below the wisp. In other words, everyone was completely satisfied, and therefore there was no chance of anyone's asking for anything. The people were absorbed in great affection for the king. Since this affection was always expanding, they were not inclined to ask for anything. In Bengal, the word ghoda dimba is used, which means the egg of a horse. Since a horse never lays an egg, the word ghoda dimba actually has no meaning. In Sanskrit, there's a word kha pushpa, which means the flower in the sky. No flower grows in the sky, therefore no one is interested in asking for kha pushka or goda dimba. During the reign of Maharaja Rishabh, people were so well equipped that they did not want to ask for anything. They were immensely supplied with all necessities for life due to King Rishabhadeva's good government. Consequently, everyone felt full satisfaction and did not want anything. This is the perfection of government. If the citizens are unhappy due to bad government, the heads of government are condemned. During these democratic days, monarchies disliked the people, but here is an example of how an emperor of the whole world, kept all the citizens fully satisfied by supplying the necessities of life and following the Vedic principles. Thus, everyone was happy during the reign of Maharaja Rishabhadeva, the supreme person of Godhead. Mm, Also, Shastra also shows not just because Rishabhadeva is the supreme lord that everything was going well. Even Yudhishthir Maharaj, wherever dharma is followed, then all the citizens will can be satisfied and happy because they'll get the basic necessities of life. They don't have to struggle for that. And they, by good government, also good governance also means teaching citizens to be satisfied with whatever they have. Mm. It's not that they are trying to get anything and everything. Whatever was required was available, and so they were satisfied. Necessities of life. Mm. So everyone was happy. So we should not think that, oh, everyone was happy because everything that they wanted was being provided. No, necessities of life was well provided. No, nobody had to struggle for that. And how was that provided? By following Vedic principles. Thus everyone was happy. And that is the way of good governance. Is to follow Vedic principles, ensure that people uh, follow their varna and ashrama, then they get their necessities of life, and they are taught to be satisfied, and then everyone will be happy. That is the ideal society, not like current society wherein everybody is hankering for more. Once while touring the world, Lord Rishabhdev, the Supreme Lord, reached a place known as Brahmavarta. There was a great conference of learned Brahmanas at that place, and all the king's sons attentively heard the instructions of the Brahmanas there. At that assembly, within the hearing of the citizens, Rishabhdev instructed his sons, although they were already very well behaved, devoted, and qualified. He instructed them so that in future they could rule the world very perfectly. Because there were, out of his 100 sons, 9 of them were rulers. Mm, but they were already well behaved, devoted, and qualified. That is very, very important actually, being well behaved. Somehow, um, these qualities, yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunays tatra samasate suraha, all these qualities which are mm, there in the demigods should be become manifest in the body of a devotee. Mm. But for that, one has to have akinchana bhakti, mm, single pointed, mm, ahetuki apratyata. If they're engaged in pure devotion, all these qualities will be developed. Traigunya Vishya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. And devotee rises above the three modes. And naturally he will be well behaved. Mm. But we can see that is why now Ṛṣabhadeva will talk about, no, sorry, Kapil Muni. He talked about the devotees performing bhakti in the three modes. And we have to understand that, okay, if somebody is not well behaved, it's not that they should be disrespected because they're Vaishnavas, they're still practicing. They might be at a neophyte stage. They should not, it's not that they should be disrespected, but such association should be avoided. And those who are guiding such neophyte devotees should train them so that they come to the stage of being well behaved. Mm. Again, it's a matter of training, and since if we don't institute any training programs and ensure that devotees go through these training programs, then how can we expect them to develop all the required qualities? Devotees still want to be independent, they want to do their own stuff. And we've seen, like, devotees shouting and, in when kind of guests that have come, maybe during a festival, otherwise. And this is not good behavior. This is not good behavior. And somebody needs to tell, saying that, sorry, this is not how we behave. We are representing Prabhupada. This is a house. This is Krishna's house, Jagannath's house. And we have to be well behaved. We have to treat others nicely. We're not, so once somebody came and in in one instance, somebody came and said, are we here to beg? We are not here to beg food from you. So we should not think that we are doing some great charity by distributing prasadam to others, etc. So such experiences should not be there. People should feel happy coming and dealing with devotees, etc. So this is very, very important. This being well behaved. Mm. And they were also devoted. And devoted means two types, right? One is they also had devotion, and at the same time they were always already surrendered to their father and devoted to his instructions, ready to be instructed. That is also very important. We should be ready to be instructed. That is the whole idea of diksha. Dikha kale bhakta kare atma samarpan. And we have to surrender ourselves, give up our independence. Mm, And we generally, when we talk about 10 offenses and we say, don't treat Guru as an ordinary man. Yeah. When we speak about this, Namaparada, then devotees say, yeah, 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 no, no, I don't treat my Guru as ordinary. But the way we deal with them is like ordinary men. So if Guru is saying something, giving instruction, then we don't understand that, oh, this is what Supreme Lord wants me to do. And then we will be arguing, we'll be debating, we'll be giving some logic. No, we have to respect Guru as good as God. And if God comes and tells us something, maybe we will argue with God also. We are so advanced. No, similarly, we should not argue, debate, uh, discuss. I'll discuss with my Guru. What is this discuss? He will instruct, you will take the instruction and come. And if we need more clarity, we can ask for clarification. That's all. So we should be ready to be instructed. Instructed means do this, don't do that. That is instruction. If we are not ready to surrender that way to Guru, then there is no meaning in initiation. Hmm. Initiation, now when some devotee say, initiation happened, nothing, no change. Why no change? Why no change? If somebody gets initiated and he or she is not experiencing any change, what does it mean? It just means that they have not surrendered. Simple. If one is surrendered, then their life should change. It changes. They get empowered. The mercy starts flowing. And that is only if somebody is surrendered. If somebody is not surrendered, just okay, I got a new name, I got new beads. No, right? And this quality because now Ṛṣabhadeva so qualified sons he had, hmm? And he is advising them in front of the whole assembly. Hmm. And also not like sons are saying, why are you instructing us like this in front of everybody? People will think we are less qualified. No. Hmm. The instructions of Lord Ṛṣabhadeva to his sons are very valuable if one wants to live peacefully within this world which is full of miseries. The next chapter, Lord Ṛṣabhadeva gives his sons these valuable instructions. So this is the central actually subject of this particular Leela. But as a just precursor or prelude, we read these two chapters. Okay, so from tomorrow, Krishna willing, we'll start this fifth chapter, Ṛṣabhadev's teachings to his son. Okay, so I'll stop here. If there are any questions, comments? Yeah, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Prabhu,
Krishna.
you mentioned that basically Vaishnava, right? It is that status is bigger than Brahmana.
Higher, yeah.
Yeah, higher. So in ISKCON, like we have this second initiation, which is Brahmana, and
Yeah,
first initiation is Harinam. So how
yeah,
to understand that?
yeah. So actually, previously, uh, see, the important thing is to actually come into the parampara. Actually, what is all this initiation business? Coming to the parampara is important. So accepting a guru is the most important thing in our life. So Harinama and the Harinama is the process to actually get connected to parampara, to Vaishnava parampara, right? So everybody first has to get Harinama. mm, Diksha, so that they get connected to the parampara, they are accepted by a guru, and then they surrender to the guru so that they can perfect their life. Now, on top of that, if suppose there are certain, because we are now also following certain aspects from Pancharatrika Vidhi, so deity worship, etc. So certain of these activities require Varna Ashrama status, meaning to be living uh, according to that particular Varna, for which there are certain mm, processes which have to be followed. And that is why for specifically deity worship, mm, there is this requirement of being a Brahmana. So it is not the first thing that is done, though in Varnashrama society, those who are the Dvijas, twice born, they go through the Upanayana samskara, right? Which is to actually accept a guru and start their study, mm, Gurukul. And then if they become a devotee, then it's fine, right? So that was the process. But now because Varnashrama dharma is not there, so the process of going to Gurukul etc. doesn't exist. So Upanayana is not happening first. So, but first now Harinama is happening, and because that is what is required for us to go back home, back to Godhead, and then to take care of other activities or other responsibilities accordingly, qualified people have to be given Brahman Diksha. That is the process. It's not, like I said, it's not required for everybody. It's not required to go back home, back to God. It's required just to take care of certain uh, duties. Mm, and of course, there are secondary benefits of Brahminical initiation, secondary benefits, which are favorable to devotion. But the primary is actually just to carry out those activities like deity worship, or like somebody is doing yagna, or somebody is preaching and they have like Brahminical status, Brahminical qualities, then yeah, because then it is again to show the world that see, this is what a Brahmana needs to be. This is what the qualification of a Brahmana is. Mm. If you see if in other sampradayas, people are so qualified, when they are actually Brahmanas, they have so much hold on Shastra. That is what is expected. So somebody has to be reading Shastra, very inquisitive, learning things, being able to, and that is one quality for a Brahmana. The other quality is, like I said, deity worship. And again, it's not that these two are separate qualities, meaning it's not that somebody who does deity worship, he cannot, he doesn't know Brahmagyan. No, then that's also not a Brahmana. Brahmana one is one who knows Brahmagyan, and he also does these other duties, yajan, yajan. Mm. But patan is basic, is required for every Brahmana. So it's not for everybody. But Prabhupada wanted to create a section of Brahmanas in the society who can guide the whole society. So the Brahmanas in ISKCON are supposed to guide the whole society. That is the expectation. Mm. As a side result or benefit, yeah, one can engage in deity worship, etc. But the real requirement mm, is to be able to guide the society. He is a Brahmana, real Brahmana. So that's not for everybody, right? Everybody is not cut out for that. So those who are not, they don't have to take Brahman Diksha. So somehow it's become like a practical requirement type today. Saying that okay, we have deities, deity worship is required, so some Brahmanas are required. But then okay, that's fine. But then they also have to be trained. They also have to live like Brahmanas. That is ideal. Because this again, these things are to also show, set an example for the world, how qualified Brahmanas lived previously, and that is being, we are trying to follow that in ISKCON. And like I said, we see that in other sampradayas. For example, if it is Sri Sampradaya or Madhva Sampradaya, I mean, they are so strict. They follow all austerities, they follow rules, they know Shastra, etc., etc.
Yeah, clear. Bro. So one more question. So even a brahmachari can be a brahmana, right? And grahastha.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so I think there is also a rule, right? That when a grahastha he becomes a brahmana, then wife also is supposed to get brahman diksha. Otherwise, all the sacrifices will not be considered complete,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So because I remember when I got married, there was a vow which was given that whenever any Anushtan happens, then you cannot do that
Yeah,
alone.
Ardhangi.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, also wanted to understand if this also a responsibility of a Brahmana couple to also teach the Brahman culture to other children in the society.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, see, this is the whole idea. See, what was a Gurukul actually? Gurukul was this, like this training ground. That was the training institute, right? To train children. That is Gurukul, right? Children come at a young age and they're trained. Shastra, Sadachar, everything. Yes, that is required. First of all, our life has to be ideal, then we can teach others. Apani achari, bhakti shikhaimu sabare. Right? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Apani achari. By our action, we should teach others. First, we should live that state in that way, and then we can teach others.
Yeah, clear.
Okay. Yeah, and and it's also a good thing to aspire to come to this, come to the higher platform, which means that, we should, if not perfectly, we should at least be clear that that I have to reach the Brahma status, right? Brahma Bhuta status. And hopefully we are making efforts to go in that direction. Then, yeah, one can, if they are qualified, become a Brahman.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. And we'll close here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyascha paridhanam pavanabhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namo koti Vaishnava jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.